The station's main hangar was a storm of noise and motion. Ships came and went, their hulls scarred from battle. Crew members shouted orders, repair drones skittered across the floor, and the air smelled faintly of ozone from freshly fired weapons. Captain Liam Drake stepped off his small transport ship, his boots clicking against the metal deck. His eyes swept across the massive alien structure, taking in every detail with the calm, sharp gaze of a man used to walking into hostile territory. He wasn't here to make friends. He was here for supplies. And maybe something more important. The war with the Krith had dragged on for years. The insectoid enemy spread like a plague, consuming planets and enslaving survivors. Alliances had formed. Armies had marched, fleets had clashed, but nothing seemed to stop them for long. Liam had learned early in the war that waiting for someone else to save you was a good way to die. So he had stopped waiting. As he walked through the corridors of the station, alien eyes followed him. Humans were still rare in this part of space, and the few who served in military roles had earned a reputation for reckless bravery. Some aliens respected that. Others saw it as foolishness. A security escort led him to the station's command chamber, a wide, circular room with a large table at its center, surrounded by hollow displays of the front lines. Commanders from different species stood around the table, their expressions grim. One figure stood out immediately. She was tall, her skin a pale shade of silver blue, with dark markings across her face. Her uniform was spotless, but her left sleeve was empty, pinned neatly at the shoulder. She had only one arm. "Captain Drake," the escort announced. "Commander Selra, acting defense chief of the station." Liam gave a small nod. "Commander." Her golden eyes studied him for a long moment before she spoke. "You are here to request supplies for your task force?" "That's right." "Your request has already been discussed," Selra said, her tone even but cool. "Resources are tight, and your mission proposal," she glanced at a holofile, "is not a battle plan. It is a suicide plan." Liam stepped closer to the table, resting his hands on the edge. "Maybe, but it's a plan that could end this war if it works." Selra's eyes narrowed. "Do you know why I no longer have two arms, Captain?" "The file says an explosion. During the defense of Vornis Prime," Liam replied. "Correct. We were winning that battle until we weren't. One mistake, one moment of hesitation, and we lost half our fleet. In war, you need every advantage you can get. No one wins with one arm." There was a quiet in the room. The alien commanders exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement. Liam's lips curved into a faint smile. "Good," he said. "I'm not here to win. I'm here to end them." That made the room go still. Even Selra tilted her head slightly, as if reassessing him. "End them?" she asked. "You keep fighting to survive," Liam said. "That's what they want. The Krith don't just fight battles. They drag them out, bleed you dry, take what's left. You keep thinking about the next victory. I'm thinking about the last one, the one where they don't come back." One of the alien commanders scoffed. "Human words. Dramatic but useless without the power to act." Liam ignored the insult. "I've got the power to act," he said simply. "It's sitting in my hangar bay right now." Selra glanced at him sharply. "You mean the stealth craft in your manifest Shadowbreak?" "That's the one." "An untested prototype," another commander muttered. "Barely a warship." "It's not meant to be a warship," Liam said. "It's meant to slip. Past every blockade, every defense, and hit them where it hurts most. Cut the head off the snake and the rest dies." Selra tapped her fingers on the table's surface, the metal producing a soft click. "You believe you can reach their central command?" "Believe?" Liam shook his head. "I know I can." "You're confident," she said. "I'm alive," he replied. "Confidence is just the part people notice." A faint smile touched her lips. Not quite approval, but something close. "If I were to give you what you need, Captain, You'd still require someone who knows the Krith's forward operations, someone who has been close to them, someone like me. You volunteering? Liam asked. I'm considering it, she said. But if I go with you, I don't follow your orders blindly. We plan this together. Liam nodded. Deal. The other commanders began murmuring in protest, but Scielra raised her remaining hand for silence. We are losing this war peace. By peace. Perhaps it is time to try something different. Liam felt the shift in the room. Not full support, but no one dared openly oppose Scielra when she had made her choice. When do we leave? She asked. As soon as you're ready, Liam said. She stepped around the table, standing beside him. Then you'll need to show me this shadow break. If I am risking my life for your plan, I want to see the tool you believe can end an empire. Together, they left the command chamber. The walk to the human ship was silent, but not cold. Liam could feel her studying him, weighing his resolve, his skill, his honesty. When they entered the hangar, Shadowbreak waited for them. Sleek, black, and almost predatory in design, it looked like it had been built to disappear into the void. Its hull absorbed light instead of reflecting it, giving the impression of a shadow made solid. Scielra's golden eyes flickered with interest. Impressive, but it will not be enough to simply hide. The Krith adapt quickly. Liam stepped up the boarding ramp. Then we make sure they never get the chance. For the first time since they'd met, Scielra's expression changed, not into a smile, but something close to respect. Very well, Captain, she said quietly. Let's see if your plan is as dangerous as your words. And with that, the first steps of their mission began. The hum of Shadowbreak's engines was low and steady, almost like a living creature breathing. Scielra walked slowly through its narrow corridors, her eyes scanning every detail. The ship felt different from the massive cruisers she was used to. No wide halls, no heavy armor plating. Instead, every inch was built for speed and silence. Liam followed behind her, hands in his pockets, watching her reactions. You've sacrificed defense for stealth, Scielra observed, her voice calm but thoughtful. We're not going to fight our way through, Liam replied. If they see us, we've already failed. That's assuming they don't adapt mid-mission, she said, glancing over her shoulder at him. The Krith always adapt. Then we move faster than they can think, Liam said. In the command deck, the crew was already busy with final preparations. The pilot, a young woman named Alara, sat at the controls, running through jump coordinates. Beside her, the ship's engineer, Mason, checked the power cores. Each of them gave a quick nod to Scielra, curious but cautious around. Their new alien passenger, Liam gestured to the main holo display in the center of the room. It showed a three-dimensional map of Krith space, pulsing red at key locations. Our target is here, Liam said, pointing to a cluster of signals deep within enemy territory. The Krith command hub. Take it out, and their fleets lose coordination. They'll still be dangerous but scattered. Easier to deal with. Scielra studied the map. There are at least 6 defensive rings between us and that hub. Detection nets, patrol fleets, sensor mines. Even if Shadowbreak is as invisible as you claim, one mistake will bring their entire sector down on us. Liam didn't argue. That's why you're here. You know their patrol cycles. You've seen how they shift formations when they're hunting. I need your eyes to guide us through. She gave a slow nod, accepting the unspoken trust. Then we'll do this my way. We move. In short jumps, not straight lines. We slip into blind spots and avoid patterns. They may not see us, but they will feel us if we're careless, Mason muttered. Sounds like we're threading a needle while it's on fire. Exactly, Liam said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. By the next cycle, Shadowbreak detached from the station. The moment the station's massive bulk fell away behind them, Liam felt the shift in the crew. The mission was real now. There was no turning back. The first jumps were smooth. Salra stood at the nav console, calling out precise adjustments that shaved minutes off their travel time while keeping them out of known Krith sensor zones. Liam had to admit, she was as sharp as they came. Every move she made came from experience, earned the hard way, but as they closed in on the second defensive ring, things changed. A fleet of Krith hunters had moved earlier than expected, sweeping the sector ahead. "They're running an unscheduled patrol," Saelra said, her brow furrowing. "That means they've detected something somewhere. Not us. Yet." Liam leaned over the pilot's seat. "Options? We can go around," Alara said, "but that adds 2 days to our path." 2 days is too long," Liam said. "The longer we're out here, the more chance they find us." Selra's gaze stayed on the hollow. "There is another way. There's an old cargo lane here, abandoned after a meteor strike destroyed half the route. The debris field would hide us from their scanners, but flying through it would be dangerous." Mason grinned without humor. "Dangerous is our specialty, right?" Liam met Saelra's eyes. "Show us the path." The debris field appeared, minutes later. A drifting graveyard of shattered rock and twisted metal, lit only by distant stars. Ilara piloted with careful hands, weaving between tumbling boulders that could crush the ship with a single hit. The crew worked in silence, tension heavy in the air. Every so often, a massive piece of wreckage would scrape past so close it felt like it brushed the hull. Halfway through, a shard of metal the size of a small shuttle broke off from a spinning asteroid and came straight toward them. Alarms blared. "Brace!" Ilara shouted, jerking the controls. The shadow brake rolled hard, narrowly avoiding the shard, but the sudden movement pushed them into the wake of another tumbling rock. It clipped the edge of their hull, sending a shudder through the ship. Damage. "Report!" Liam barked. Mason's voice came from engineering. "Outer plating breach on Section 3. No decompression. Stealth system still online, but we've got a scar." "A scar is fine," Liam said. "Just keep us moving." Selra's eyes remained locked on the sensors. "We're almost through. 1 more minute." And then, just like that, the debris thinned and open space stretched ahead. They slipped out the other side, but almost immediately, Saelra's voice sharpened. "Contact! Krith scout ship, dead ahead. It's not moving." Liam frowned. "Wreck?" "No," Saelra said slowly. "It's a sensor trap." As if on cue, the dead scout lit up, its systems flaring to life. Krith signals began flooding the area. "They've got us," Ilara said, her voice tight. Liam's mind raced. "Can we jump before they close in?" "Too late," Saelra replied. "They'll be on top of us in 30 seconds. Liam's gaze slid to her. "Then we make them look the wrong way." Within moments, Shadowbreak dumped a burst of false engine signatures and sensor echoes, scattering them into the debris field they'd just left. To the Krith, it would look like multiple ships fleeing in different directions. The scout hesitated, just long enough for Ilara to slam the ship into a high-speed dive toward a narrow gravity shadow cast by a nearby moon. The Krith signals scrambled, chasing the decoys. The crew let out quiet breaths of relief as the threat faded from the sensors. "That was effective," Selra admitted. "You have a talent for turning chaos into advantage." Liam smirked. "It's the only thing I'm good at." But inside, he knew this close call had cost them. The Krith would now be on higher alert. Their margin for error had just shrunk to almost nothing. Still, as Shadowbreak angled toward its next jump, Selra caught his eye and gave a small nod. The kind soldiers give each other when words aren't needed. They were in this together now. The void outside Shadowbreak stretched endlessly, dotted with cold, distant stars. The hum of the engines was the only sound, steady and low, like the heartbeat of a predator waiting to strike. Liam stood on the command deck, hands resting on the back of the pilot's chair, eyes locked on the holographic map. The next defensive ring was ahead, The Krith's most dangerous one yet. Selra leaned over the console, her golden eyes sharp. "This is where most infiltration attempts fail," she said quietly. "The Krith call it the black net. It's not a physical wall. It's a constant swarm of sensor drones, moving in random patterns. One wrong move, and they'll know we're here." Mason whistled low. "Sounds like a fun place to visit." "Fun isn't the word," Selra said, her tone dry. "Once you're spotted, the drones call in hunter-killers, and those don't stop chasing until you're space dust." Liam studied the map, then looked at Selra. "How do they keep it? Running without gaps?" "They don't," she replied. "There are micro-gaps, but they last seconds, not enough for a normal ship to pass through." "Good thing shadow break isn't normal," Liam said. Selra's brow lifted slightly. "You've hinted at your ship's special abilities. Now would be a good time to explain." Liam hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Shadow break isn't just built for stealth. It can phase shift, slip a fraction out of normal space for a few seconds. Sensors won't see us, and physical objects won't touch us. But it drains the core fast, so we can't use it often." Mason added, "Think of it like stepping between shadows, but the shadows are reality itself." Selra's expression was unreadable. "If that works, it could get us through the black net. But timing would need to be perfect." "That's where you come in," Liam said. "You call the moment, and we jump through the gap." For the next hour, they planned the approach. Selra memorized the drone patterns, while Ilara adjusted their trajectory to match the speed needed for the phase shift. Mason stood ready in engineering, watching the energy readouts like a hawk. When the black net finally appeared ahead, it was almost beautiful. Thousands of tiny drones moving like a swarm of glittering insects, their lights flashing in complex patterns. Beautiful, but deadly. "Ready on your mark, Commander," Ilara said. Selra watched the swarm closely, her focus absolute. Seconds passed. The drones twisted and turned, their movements unpredictable to anyone who didn't know what to look for. "Stand by." Selra's voice was calm, but Liam could see the tension in her posture. The hollow lit up with a small opening, barely wide enough for their ship. "Now!" she commanded. "Phase shift," Liam ordered. Mason triggered the system, and shadow break seemed to shimmer, the stars outside warping strangely. For a brief moment, everything was silent, as if sound itself had been left behind. The ship slid forward like a shadow slipping under a door. Then, just as quickly, they were back in normal space. And through the net, a collective breath filled the command deck. "Gap closing behind us," Selra reported. "No detection. Signals. We're in the clear." Liam gave a nod of approval. "Good work, everyone." But their relief didn't last long. Selra's console beeped sharply. "Hold on. I'm detecting Krith signals ahead. Not patrols. They're stationary." Ilara frowned. "A base?" Selra's eyes narrowed. "More like an ambush point. They must have realized a weak spot in the net exists, so they stationed forces here to catch anyone who slips through." Liam's jaw tightened. "What are we looking at?" "2 corvettes and a frigate. They're spread out, blocking the direct path," Selra said. "If we try to go around, we'll hit another drone cluster." Mason's voice came through the comm. "So we either punch through or get stuck between the net and their guns. Neither sounds like a holiday." Liam thought for a moment. "We don't need to fight them. Just make them fight each other." He turned to Selra. "Can you patch me into their comm channels?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "I can, but why?" "Just do it," Liam said. Within moments, the sound of the Krith language filled the bridge, a series of harsh clicks and tones. Liam spoke into the channel, not in human speech, but in perfect Krith dialect. The crew stared at him in surprise. He sent a false transmission, posing as a Krith commander, ordering the frigate to fire on one of the corvettes, claiming it had been infiltrated by humans. The moment the message went through, chaos erupted on the enemy side. The frigate's guns lit up and the corvette returned fire. "They're actually falling for it," Mason said, half in disbelief. "Never underestimate the power of mistrust," Liam replied. While the Krith ships tore into each other, Ilara slipped shadow break past them, undetected. Minutes later, they were clear. Sayelra turned to Liam, her voice low. "You speak Krith?" "Picked it up a few years ago," Liam said casually. "Comes in handy." "You could have told me sooner," she said, "and missed the look on your face?" "Not a chance," he replied with a faint smile. She shook her head, but there was a spark of amusement in her golden eyes. As the enemy signals faded behind them, shadow break angled toward the next sector, the last major obstacle before, the Krith command hub. But everyone on the crew knew the closer they got, the more dangerous it would be. Still, there was a quiet sense of confidence now. They had made it through the black net. They had outsmarted the enemy twice in one day, and Liam could see it. Even Selra was starting to believe this mission might actually succeed. The journey to the Krith capital sector was long enough for tension to creep back into the air. The crew had celebrated making it through the black net, but now the reality set in. This was the last stretch before they reached the heart of the enemy. From the command deck, the view ahead looked almost calm. The capital system's bright star shone in the distance, its light spilling across a scattered field of moons and debris belts. But Sayelra knew better. "There," she said, pointing at the holographic display. Outer capital defenses, layered in 3 rings. The first is sensor beacons tied directly to the capital command. If we trip one, they'll know we're coming before we even see the second ring. Liam studied the map. "And the second ring?" "Minefields," Selra said simply, "dense, mobile, and designed to herd intruders into kill zones. The third ring is the capital fleet itself, hundreds of ships, all stationed to defend the command hub." Mason let out a low whistle. "Sounds like they don't trust anyone to get close." "They don't," Selra replied. "And so far, no one ever has." Liam tapped a finger against the display. "Then we'll be the first." Selra's gaze stayed on him for a moment before she spoke again. "The first ring is the most dangerous for a ship like Shadowbreak. Stealth won't help against quantum-linked beacons. They don't scan for presence. They scan for absence. The moment something distorts the background space, they'll notice." "So how do we get through?" Ilara asked. "We don't," Sayelra said. "Not the usual way. We trick them into thinking we're part of the system." Liam understood instantly. "You mean mimic their beacon signals?" Selra nodded. "If we match the signal patterns exactly, the beacons will think we're one of their own. But the timing has to be perfect." "Mason, can you do it?" Liam asked. The engineer grinned, already pulling up data streams. "Give me 20 minutes. 25 minutes later, Shadowbreak glided into the first ring. The beacons hung in space like tiny dark orbs, each one pulsing with faint light. To any intruder, they would have been a wall of detection. Mason fed the mimic signal into the stealth systems, and the ship's profile blended seamlessly into the beacon network. The beacons ignored them, their lights continuing to pulse in perfect rhythm. "First ring clear," Sayelra said, though her voice carried no relief yet. "Now comes the hard part." The second ring appeared on sensors, a shifting wall of mines. Some were small and fast, others massive enough to tear apart a cruiser. They drifted in overlapping patterns, their movement unpredictable. "This isn't a minefield," Ilara muttered. "It's a storm." "We follow the path of least resistance," Sayelra said. "Stay in my wake and don't deviate." Ilara's hands were steady on the controls, weaving the ship through narrow gaps between deadly orbs. One wrong move, and they'd be gone. Every time a mine drifted too close, Shadowbreak's hull sensors lit up in warning. Halfway through, one of the mines shifted unexpectedly, closing the gap ahead. "No way through," Ilara said quickly. "Hold," Selra ordered. Her eyes scanned, the movements calculating. There's a gap to starboard. You'll have to roll the ship 90 degrees and slide between those two clusters. Tight fit, Ilara said, her knuckles white on the controls. Tight fits are better than explosions, Mason muttered from engineering. Ilara executed the maneuver flawlessly, the ship rolling and gliding through with less than a meter of clearance on either side. The mine clusters drifted apart again behind them, sealing the way. "Second ring clear," Sailra said at last. But before anyone could celebrate, alarms blared. "Third ring incoming," Ilara reported. "Multiple contacts, a lot of contacts." The hologram lit up with red markers, dozens of Krith warships forming an immense wall between them and the capital hub. "That," Mason said grimly, "is not something we can trick." Liam stared at the wall of ships. "No, but we can slip through their blind spots." Sailra shook her head. "There are no blind spots in a formation like that. They rotate constantly to cover every vector." Liam's gaze shifted to the map, his mind working. "Unless," he tapped a section of the display, "we make one." "Make a blind spot?" Ilara asked, confused. "If we trigger a distraction on the far side of their formation, they'll shift to respond. Even a small gap is all we need," Liam explained. Sailra frowned. "And how do you plan to trigger that distraction?" Liam's eyes met hers. "Phase shift. With a twist." He explained the idea. They'd launch a small drone loaded with false signal beacons and phase shift it into range of the enemy. Once it reappeared, it would mimic a human battleship signature, making the Krith think they'd been flanked. "They'll send ships to intercept," Sailra finished the thought, "leaving a hole in their lines." It was risky. If the Krith detected the real shadow break instead of the decoy, the mission would be over. But no one on the crew hesitated. Mason prepped the drone, Ilara aligned their path, and Sailra calculated the timing. "Ready?" Sailra said at last. The drone vanished, in a shimmer as it phase shifted away. Seconds later, the sensors picked up movement on the far side of the formation. Krith ships broke off to intercept the false signal. "There's our gap," Sailra said. "Move!" Shadowbreak dove forward, engines at silent full burn. They slipped through the opening like a knife between armor plates. Krith ships loomed. On either side, their dark hulls bristling with weapons, but none fired. And then they were through. The Krith capital hub now a massive shape ahead, its structure glittering with countless lights. Liam exhaled slowly. "We're in." But Sailra's gaze stayed locked on the massive station. "We're in," she agreed. "But now comes the part where we see if your plan can actually end them." The crew knew there was no going back. The heart of the enemy was before them, and whatever happened next would decide the war. The Krith capital hub shrank behind them, but no one on Shadowbreak relaxed. The damage they had done to the enemy's command system was massive, but it also meant the Krith had nothing left to lose. Sailra stood at the sensor console, her golden eyes fixed on the display. "Multiple contacts. They're coming from every vector, at least a dozen warships." "How fast?" Liam asked. "Fast enough to catch us before we reach friendly space," she replied. Mason swore under his breath. "From engineering. Our core's running hot after that phase shift trick. We won't be able to outrun them for long." Liam paced for a moment, thinking. "Then we don't run. We make our stand here, in a way they won't expect." Ilara looked over her shoulder. "You want to fight 12 warships with one stealth ship?" "Not head-on," Liam said. "We use what we have, and what they think we don't." He brought up the holographic projection of the surrounding space. Scattered nearby was the debris of old battles, twisted ship hulks, shattered armor plates, floating mine casings. "We hide in the wreck field," Liam explained. "Let them chase us in. Then we turn this graveyard into a weapon." Sailra studied the projection, then gave a slow nod. "The magnetic scatter in the wreckage will make it hard for their sensors to tell us apart from the debris. It could work, if your crew can navigate it without tearing the ship apart." "We can," Ilara said firmly. Mason's voice came, over comms. I'll rig the mine casings to detonate remotely. We can make a chain reaction once they're inside. Liam gave him a sharp nod. Do it. Shadowbreak slipped into the wreck field, its engines low and quiet. Jagged hull fragments drifted around them, some larger than the ship itself. Ilara threaded them through narrow gaps, her hands steady on the controls. Minutes later, the first Krith ships entered the field. They moved cautiously at first, scanning for traps. But once they caught a faint reading of Shadowbreak's engine trail, they surged forward. "They've taken the bait," Selra said. Liam waited until the enemy formation was deep inside, then glanced at Mason. "Now!" Mason triggered the first charge. An old mine casing exploded, sending shards of metal and energy rippling outward. The blast struck nearby debris, triggering more explosions. The wreck field became a storm of fire and shrapnel. One Krith frigate was caught in the chain reaction, its hull ripping apart in seconds. Another swerved to avoid debris, colliding with a shattered cruiser hull and tearing open its side. "Two down," Saelra reported. "The others are scattering to avoid the blasts." Liam pointed at the display. "Push through this gap. They'll think we're escaping and follow us straight into the second trap." Ilara drove the ship through the narrow opening, Shadowbreak weaving between spinning wrecks. Behind them, the Krith ships pursued, exactly as planned. Mason triggered the second set of charges. This time, the blast wave was stronger, fueled by the remains of an old battleship reactor. Two more Krith ships vanished in fire, but the rest kept coming. "They're adapting," Selra warned, switching to long-range bombardment to clear a path. Liam knew they couldn't keep playing the same trick. Then it's time for the final card. He moved to the weapons console and armed Shadowbreak's primary payload, a single, high-yield charge designed to destroy a capital ship. It was their only one. "We plant it on the largest ship in the pack," he said. "When it goes up, the shock wave will take out the rest." Saelra looked at him steadily. "That means getting close. Too close." "I know," Liam said, "and that's why I'm flying this part." He slid into the pilot's seat, his hands gripping the controls. Ilara shifted to weapons backup without argument. Shadowbreak darted out from cover, engines flaring. The Krith immediately focused on them, the largest of their ships, a command destroyer, moving to intercept. Liam took them straight toward it, dodging incoming fire with sharp, sudden rolls. The destroyer loomed larger and larger in the viewport, its weapons lighting up the darkness. "Range, 1,000 meters, Selra called out. "Arming payload," Mason said. Liam pushed the engines to maximum. "Hold steady." They skimmed along the destroyer's hull, so close they could see the seams in its armor. Mason fired the payload, embedding it deep into a structural weak point. "Payload away!" Mason shouted. Liam pulled the ship into a sharp climb, engines straining as they tore away from the Krith fleet. "Detonate," Liam ordered. The explosion was blinding. The destroyer vanished in a sphere of fire, its shock waves slamming into the surrounding ships. Several smaller vessels were torn apart instantly, and even the ones that survived were crippled. "Enemy formation breaking apart," Selra reported, her voice steady despite the destruction. "They're retreating." The crew let out collective breaths of relief. But Liam didn't relax. "Set course for friendly space," he said. "We're not safe until we're home." Shadowbreak slipped out of the wreck field, leaving the burning remains of the Krith fleet behind. Hours later, as the stars streaked past in jump space, Selra approached Liam on the quiet command deck. "You've done it," she said softly. "Not just hurt them, ended them. Without their command hub and without their fleet, the Krith will have no choice but to surrender." Liam shook his head. "We ended their war. That's enough for me." Saelra studied him for a long moment, then spoke again. "Back on the station, I told you no one wins with one arm. You smiled and said you weren't here to win. You were here to end them. Now I see you meant every word." Liam gave a faint smile. "And we did it. Together." For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile in return. Together. Shadowbreak flew on into the dark, its crew silent but knowing they had changed the course of history. And somewhere far behind, in the ruins of the Krith fleet, the war they had all bled for was finally over.